Beach Read by Emily Henry was published in 2020 and quickly cemented the author as a pillar in the romance book community. She has released 5 subsequent contemporary romance novels, and film adaptations have been announced for each one except Great Big Beautiful Life, though I do expect an announcement to be made for that one at some point. Beach Read, the film, is expected to release in theaters on May 7th, 2027. It is being directed by Yulin Kwong, who also did the screenplay for the People We Meet on Vacation adaptation. Ever since the Beach Read adaptation was announced, fans have been excited but hesitant. For so many Emily Henry fans, including myself, Beach Read is their favorite book, and it's a story that means so much to them. Casting announcements and footage from the movie set have only spurred further criticism and doubt regarding this adaptation. I've made a few videos on film adaptations, and I always like to maintain the stance that there is no such thing as a perfect book to screen adaptation. What matters is if the actors are able to capture the spirit of the characters, and if the movie maintains the same messaging and themes as the source material. Obviously, the Beach Read movie isn't out yet, so it's too early to judge if, despite the jarring casting and set choices, the movie will maintain the heart and soul of the book. But the Beach Read adaptation is already stirring up a lot of discourse online, so let's talk about it. The Beach Read film adaptation was announced way back in April of 2023, which, wow, it does not feel like that long ago, but that was 3 whole years ago. Fans were initially excited, and as of 2024, it was confirmed that all of Emily Henry's current contemporary romance novels up to that point would be adapted to the screen. Thus began fan casts and hype around the Beach Read film. It was also announced that Yulin Kwong would be directing the film and would also write the screenplay for the now released People We Meet on Vacation film. Yulin Kwong is a screenwriter, director, and author who published her first novel in 2024, How to End a Love Story. Side note, after I read her book, I fully trusted her with the People We Meet on Vacation and Beach Read adaptations because I really enjoyed How to End a Love Story. I ended up having mixed feelings about the People We Meet on Vacation movie, but I won't get into that because we're here to talk about Beach Read. No further major announcements would be made for the Beach Read adaptation until February of this year, when it was announced that Phoebe Dynevor of Bridgerton fame would be playing January Andrews, the female lead of Beach Read. This news was announced in late February, and Emily Henry also included it in her newsletter on March 14th, stating that she couldn't be more thrilled with the casting. For context, she also released several newsletters about the People We Meet on Vacation movie and casting, so keep that in mind for later because I will be mentioning her newsletter a lot. Emily Henry also went on to say, an actor doesn't need to match up physically to the book's description of the character they're portraying. For me, the performance and energy matter so much more. That said, Phoebe is so right for this part. And then she uses the next 2 paragraphs to gush about Phoebe and how she can't wait for us to see her as January. My initial reaction was excitement. I enjoyed Phoebe in Bridgerton, and she has the general look of January Andrews. Character casting honestly doesn't bother me too much, especially if it's something trivial like hair or eye color and isn't that important to the story. What matters, like I said before, is if the actor is able to capture the spirit of the character. Look at Connor's story as Ilya Rozanov in Heated Rivalry. If you read the book, then you know Ilya is a big, tall, bearded Russian dude, not a curly blonde with blue eyes and a soft face. But Connor's story was able to transform into the aura of Ilya, that it eclipsed something as trivial as physical appearance. So much so that my brother did not believe me that this is what Ilya looks like in the book. So I personally did not have a problem with Phoebe Dynevor being cast as January, and I don't remember seeing much discourse about her casting announcement online when it first came out. At least there wasn't as much controversy as the next casting announcement to be made. In April of this year, it was announced that Patrick Schwarzenegger, Nepo baby and a star of HBO's White Lotus season 3, would be playing Augustus Gus Everett. Now you can imagine the immediate baffled reactions from fans that a man who has not had any major roles and isn't known for much besides being Arnold Schwarzenegger's son would be playing Gus Everett. Litfic author, broody, chronically tired, more akin to an Evan Peters or a Logan Lerman type. Some even say they pictured him as Luke Thompson, which is funny considering that his on-screen sister, Phoebe Dynevor, will be playing January. I personally don't know much about Patrick Schwarzenegger, but I will say I did enjoy his character in The White Lotus. He managed to perfectly capture that douchey frat bro persona, but also imbued moments of vulnerability and growth that made him one of the more compelling characters of season 3, at least for me. I've seen people jump into conclusions about how he'll play Gus based on how he played Saxon in The White Lotus. We haven't seen how he'll play Gus, yet people are assuming that he'll be a douchey frat bro type. In this case, people are upset that Patrick doesn't have the range to play Gus, but they aren't giving him the chance to show some range. To be clear, He was not my first choice for Gus either, and the hair and costume choices that have since been revealed aren't doing him any favors. I've always been a Logan Lerman as Gus Everett girly, especially this picture. Like, this is how I imagine Gus. Remember that Emily Henry newsletter I mentioned from March 14th? In that newsletter, she also had some things to say about Gus and his casting. At that point, they hadn't cast anyone as Gus, so keep that in mind. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 paragraphs are used to discuss the casting process for Gus and how he holds a special place in Emily Henry's heart, same as many of us. At that point on March 14th, Emily Henry said they hadn't found their Gus yet, but were getting closer by the day, and she's never felt more pressure to get it right than I do with this one. She followed up with assuring readers that, "I'm not worried, we are looking at some seriously amazing Gus's and we will find the right person for the job. And while rumors will swirl in the meantime, just know that when there's something to report, I'll tell you personally right here in the grocery list," which is what her newsletter is called. I will tell you right here in the grocery list. Patrick Schwarzenegger was announced as Gus on April 14th, a month after that newsletter came out. Emily Henry talked about Phoebe's casting in a newsletter that came out 3 weeks after she was announced as January. It is now mid-July, 3 months after the casting announcement for Patrick, and Emily Henry has not said a single thing about it in her newsletter. She did send one on April 22nd, a week after the announcement, but said nothing about the casting. The newsletter was about a paperback release date for Great Big Beautiful Life. At the end of the email, she did say, "I just want to send another heartfelt thank you for all of your love and support. It has always and continues to mean so much to me, more than you can know." What I'm about to say next is purely speculation, so please do not take any of it as fact. It's just my opinion on the matter. We know from previous newsletters that Emily Henry was excited about Phoebe's casting, and she was somewhat involved in the casting of Gus. She mentioned that People We Meet on Vacation casting as well, and gushed about Emily Bader and Tom Blythe as Poppy and Alex. She herself said that as soon as there was something to report about Gus's casting, it would be in the newsletter. It has now been 3 months, and there has been nothing said about Gus's casting in the newsletter. I'm not going to hold anything against her for not sending updates over every announcement. Life happens, and sometimes it's easier to consolidate news in one big email rather than continuously sending them. However, she sent an email a week after the announcement and did not mention the casting once. I'm not saying she's unhappy with the casting, but she did say how much Gus means to her and that once there was something to report, she would include it in her newsletter, especially since she did a dedicated newsletter about Phoebe Dynevor's casting and then sent a newsletter about something else a week after Patrick Schwarzenegger was announced. It didn't even mention him. All I'm saying here is actions speak louder than words, and on the internet, sometimes silence is a greater indication of someone's feelings than words. Director Yulin Kwang said it took them 6 months to find the perfect Gus. Once we knew Phoebe would be our January, my efforts became more focused and specific. Not on who would play the best Gus according to the text, but who would play the best Gus opposite our specific January. That meant in-person director sessions and chemistry reads with Phoebe. The moment Patrick sat across from her, there was something electric in the room with us. "There's magic to chase here," I wrote in my notes afterwards. I checked in with Phoebe after the reads, and she said, "It's obviously Patrick, isn't it?" And I thought to myself, so she feels it too. Chemistry between the actors is obviously important for a romance movie, but people are still wary. From what I've been able to find, it looks like production on the film began in Toronto in June of this year and is expected to last around 8 weeks. Kevin Bacon, Andy McDowell, Kristen Davis, and Tig Notaro have also been announced to the cast. I won't spoil what the book is about, but some context is needed for this next portion of the video. Photos of some of the sets and costumes have been released and has frustrated a lot of fans. I feel like I do need to explain context first, though, especially if you haven't read the book. The first photo I remember seeing circulated was one of Patrick Schwarzenegger as Gus. I believe it was this post from Yulin Kwang on Instagram.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Immediate reactions were strong, to say the least. Full disclosure, I'm no longer active on Instagram, so I don't know if Emily Henry has been reposting things to her story about the movie or commenting on related posts. She is a collaborator on this post, but I haven't seen any comments on it, which does seem unusual, but not necessarily a sign that she's against the casting. People were mainly criticizing Patrick as Gus and how he looks like a serial killer, how Gus would never wear a chain necklace, and my personal favorite, that he looks like Jason De Laurentiis from Pretty Little Liars. Now I can't unsee it. After that, more photos of the costumes were released. A lot of fans were confused as to why they're dressed in winter clothes in almost all the pictures that have been shared when the story takes place during the summer. Also, that the clothes they have January in don't fit her character. This is a woman who wears pizza printed sweatshirts, floral ankle boots, denim cutoffs, among other eclectic fashion choices. She also has a thing for shoes, from the very cheap and tacky to the very expensive and dramatic, that is pulled straight from the book. More and more evidence that this movie might be taking place during winter winter is coming out, such as fake snow around the fictional Pete's bookstore and author signing posters for both Gus and January that take place in February. Also, someone pointed out on TikTok that on the bottom of these posters, there is the logo for Novel Bookstore, which is in St. Louis, Missouri, and the book takes place in North Bear Shores, Michigan. So on Lake Michigan, that is not Missouri. So now I'm like, okay, is the movie gonna take place in Missouri? And then also, why are we dragging real life authors into this? Did they consent to this? I mean, they must have to use their likeness. Yuling Kwang really said, oh, her name is January. Right. So we'll set the movie in winter. There's also discourse about the covers for Gus and January's books. Some people saying Gus would never have a cover like that. And in the Beach Read book, the cover for the book is literally described word for word as an abstract black and white cover with square red letters. In real life, authors don't usually get to say on their covers, but in this case, if Emily Henry took the time to describe what the cover for his book looks like, how hard is it to just make that cover? Now, the catalyst for the book is that January inherits her father's beach house on Lake Michigan. A main part of the story is that her father had a secret mistress that January never knew about, and he lived in this house with his mistress. When January moves in for the summer, she finds out that her neighbor is Gus Everett, her college rival. In my opinion, they weren't actually rivals, but there is tension from not totally getting along in college. Then January went on to be a successful romance author, and Gus went on to be a successful lit fic author. They're both going through some stuff, and both are struggling with writer's block, so for the summer, they challenge each other to switch genres. Gus will write a romance novel, and January will write a lit fic novel. They spend the summer teaching each other about their genres, so January takes Gus on a date for inspiration. For the romance novel, Gus takes January to interview cult survivors, etc. It is a quintessential summer read where the 2 months between June and August are spent experiencing new things, falling in love, and healing. Summer has always felt like a liminal space, a 2-month break from the real world, ingrained in us as children from when we were out of school. Even as adults with lives and responsibilities, summer still feels like a time where you can just have fun and try new things. In my opinion, the story just won't hit the same if it takes place between December and February. And I honestly can't wrap my head around that decision either, especially if they're already filming it during the summer. Photos of the set have been released, more specifically of January and Gus's houses. Like with every other detail revealed from this adaptation, people had a lot to say about the houses. Is this how I pictured their houses? No, I imagined them in a more secluded area. January even describes in the book that there's like tall beach grass around, and there's like a little hill to walk up to the house. And I did imagine them more spaced apart. And oh yeah, they're actually on Lake Michigan, but whatever. Not every detail is going to be exactly how you picture it in your head. I think the frustration that fans are experiencing isn't just because the houses necessarily look bad, or the exterior of Pete's books isn't what they pictured, or January would never wear that outfit. It's more to do with the fact that every time a photo is released or an announcement is made, it's not right, and it keeps piling up to the point where we feel like we're being pranked, or production is doing this on purpose. It's not just one thing that they're misinterpreting or not adapting, it's everything. It's setting a summer book in winter, it's dressing Patrick Schwarzenegger as a serial killer and Phoebe Dynevor like the epitome of Christian girl autumn. It's them seemingly going out of their way to get it wrong. There are probably a lot of things that I missed, so I apologize if I did not include everything that has been shared in this video. New stuff is being shared every day as well, which is why I'm trying to make this video close to when I'm going to upload it, just to make it as relevant as possible. I will watch the movie when it comes out next year, and I'll likely make a video on it where I judge it as an adaptation and as its own film. I will be holding most of my judgments until I actually watch it though. I know it's hard as a fan to see one of your favorite books being butchered in real time, but for now I'm just gonna wait until the movie comes out before releasing my final verdict. For my own peace of mind and my own sanity, I have to just stop seeing the updates from this movie. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If I missed anything from the production of the movie so far, please comment down below so we can discuss. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more like it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!